Yeah, we got here about 3:30.
So they just can't raise it.
It's cranked and cranked. Cranking in here now. Where are we at? Planning board workshop.
And you can stop it for the whole year, even if it does go good.
So Dan's running a runoff on the 18th.
Ready?
Yeah, get your
I got him. Don't worry about him.
excitability.
You ready?
That's why I'm here. So.
You ready?
I'm ready. So you got to sit down. Yeah. I think Sammy's first anyway.
Sammy's first?
You gonna use your microphone today?
Yeah. Here's Ryan. Here he is. There's the boss.
All right. Professional. Yeah. Professional.
Yellow.
That's what the state says at least. That's what the state says. And we believe him for now. But you screwed this up.
Is it?
Hey, buddy, how you?
Just wait.
Come here.
I don't know if I am or not.
Hey, surprised. Are you be the devil,
There's better days. That's gonna get better after tonight.
That's right. Overturn the table, yeah.
Well, good.
Put one out there symbolical.
Kimberly, you good?
Yep, very good. Thank you very much. Glad everybody's here. Thank you, Peter, for coming tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, good job,
Thank
Peter.
you, Kimberly, for sending me an email to remind me.
Yeah, thanks,
But
Kimberly.
I did have it in my calendar.
Yeah. Thanks for remembering that, Kimberly.
Yeah. We'll teach you how to use your phone next. Okay?
Call this meeting to order. Effingham County Planning Board Workshop, June 11th, 2024. I'd like to welcome everyone. We're going to begin with a word of prayer and a pledge of allegiance. I'd like to ask everyone stand if you can. Much grace, Heavenly Father, we praise you for this time. We can come out and discuss these ordinances and issues, future plans for Effingham, and we just ask you would be with us, and just thank you so much for staff and their hard work. Continue to bless us, our county, our state, and our country, and thank you for our leaders and our troops that keep us safe. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Man.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, how about our agenda?
Okay, item 4 has been withdrawn.
Item 4 has been withdrawn. We get a motion to approve this agenda with the noted change.
Motion to approve with changes to remove ordinance of hearing, item number 4.
All right, a motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Zipper, all's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried by all. Any discussion on the minutes? Call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Motion for approval, is there a second?
I second.
Second, Mr. Higgins, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried by all. So all items presented, we presented again at a future Board of Commissioners meeting. Item number 1, ordinance revision, public hearing, discussion of an amendment to the Code of Ordinances, Part 2, Official Code, Appendix C, Article 3, Section 3.17-3.17A ponds. Ms. Samantha.
Yes, sir. So the pond ordinance right now, it doesn't really talk of the position of the actual pond. It talks about where excavation can go, but not where the actual pond can go. So we made some adjustments to that, saying that the pond does have to be 50 foot from the house or any other dwelling on property, or churches, schools, that kind of thing. We're also clarifying when certain ponds need to come before planning board and board of commissioners versus when they can be handled on a staff level. And we also just made a small adjustment that ponds still have to adhere to certain buffer ordinances as well. So that's pretty much all it is.
So which ponds come before staff and do not have to come before?
So on that 3.17.1 at the very top, those 3 items, if it meets 2 of those 3, it'll have to come before planning board and board of commissioners. However, if it just meets 1 of those 3, it'll have to be a staff level.
I thought it already said if it was exceeded an acre, or under an acre had to come to us, right? Before,
Yes.
So
Okay.
before it did, yes, sir.
yeah, okay.
But
Thank you.
now if it's under an acre, but the dirt doesn't leave the property, it won't have to come before y'all.
So
But
that's-
if it's under an acre and the dirt's leaving the property, then it will come before y'all.
I think that's good.
Mm-hmm. So that's basically a less than acre borrow pit that's not just used on site.
On-site fill. So the staff could approve that and we wouldn't have to.
Yeah, that's the advantage of having somebody with stormwater on staff now.
Mm.
Question for the engineer. So when these people dig these ponds, I hear the people in the audience always complain that my water table is gonna be affected and my well isn't gonna work. So I'm thinking that their well is deeper than these ponds are gonna be. So does it really affect the hydraulics of their wells?
It depends on where it's at. So actually on our GIS interactive map, we just added the shallow groundwater table. That's from Atlas, I think 18, and then there's a significant recharge area also in Atlas 20. And so you can go on and look online and see which addresses where you have a shallow water table that's already been identified. And so it's possible that it could. It depends on where you're at. But typically for drinking wells, those are so far deep that it's not going to be an issue. But you could hit groundwater if you start to dig at a certain point.
So shallow wells are for irrigation and deep wells are for drinking.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Okay.
But what we hear a lot is if he digs that pond, it's gonna dry mine up. And what I can tell you is I got a pond and my cousin just dug one and they got it pumped dry 25 feet deep and mine's running out to overflow 400 yards away. So most of the time when they tell you that is bunk.
Yeah.
It could happen if it was sandy enough soil and it was dry enough, it could happen. But it don't normally happen around
Could
here.
percolate from your pond to his
Yeah,
pond.
it could, but
It could. Normally
normally
won't.
it don't.
Yeah, and again, you do have shallow groundwater tables where you'll hit water and then you just have water constantly there because it's wanting to recharge, but it just depends on where you're at, so.
Okay.
I can't remember what.
So-
Go ahead.
So if it's less than 1 acre
You get a permit.
and I'm taking it off-site, I don't have, it's just staff level, right? Because it
If you're
says,
taking it off site, it'll come to planning board and board of commissioners.
excavation of land or removal of earth that exceeds 1 acre, so that's check mark 1. If it's less than, that's not a check mark, right?
If you check 2 out of the 3,
Right, but you wouldn't check 1 if it's less than an acre.
that's right.
worded,
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So then 2 is going off-site, but I'm less than an acre, that would be staff level. I'm just trying to make sure we're saying the same thing, right? If it exceeds 1 acre, that's a check mark, but if it's not checked. And then if it's leaving the site, that's a check mark.
Yes, I did not correct that to say that if it's less than an acre. No, I'm sorry. If it's less than an acre and the dirt's coming off site, we could do it as a staff level if that's okay with y'all. Or would y'all like to see it if it's
Say that again.
less than an acre and you're taking the dirt off site? Would you like to see it or would you not like to see it?
think it's necessary.
Yeah, in my personal opinion, I don't think so either. 1 acre excavation, if it's going off site, it's not really a borrow pit operation. It's just digging a pond and you're trying to not have to find room for it on your site.
Go fishing.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure we were.
Sorry, I explained that wrong earlier. And then, as some of y'all know, as far as the location of the pond situation, there is a development currently where the pond is about 10 foot from the back of the apartments. So we're just trying to clarify that, we do need some distance between that pond and the pool.
So excavation cannot start until 100 feet away from basically any building or right of way. Currently is the way it's worded.
Yes, sir.
But is this just is this a storm pond on a development site or a pond that you're building after the fact that you're trying to create a pond for some other use?
Both. Both.
This is something that we would be reviewed against from a development plan being submitted, and they're supposed to be 100 feet before the pond can start being excavated in any building.
So, as an example, the townhomes that are going in next to the high school on Highway 30.
Mm-hmm.
By the time a toddler comes out that back door, they're in the pond. So there's nobody is going to be able to do anything about it. So I would rather move the distance of the pond from the building than I would start putting up barriers around the ponds. 100 feet.
Well, why don't we have an ordinance that requires a fence, because you can't put a pool in your backyard without a fence.
We're going to talk about pools shortly and fencing, actually. But that's a good point. See, that's what I'm saying. So now, if to prevent that hazard, I don't want to go put fences around every stormwater pond in the county. My God, and then to mow them and take care of them and fix them.
Yeah.
I'd rather move it a little bit of distance from the structure and have a little more reaction time for parents or somebody like that. And I mean, that one even goes downhill into the pond.
But 3.17 has never, for pond has never been
Stormwater ponds.
correct.
Okay. Then we'll just say
It's been either
excluding,
a bar pit, a fishing
excluding
pond.
stormwater ponds. We can do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the stormwater ponds are part of a set of engineering plans.
And not just a
and
pond
overall
pond.
development.
Right. We'll just say excluding stormwater ponds. Or any ponds acting as stormwater assets. Can we say something like that? Okay, thank you.
Well, there's a retention pond on my property, and there's a fence around
Keep
it.
close.
Yeah, I don't think we want to.
That should be handled in the
That's-
development of,
Yeah.
In the design
neighborhood.
phase? Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, site plan.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Unless it's super steep or something, but I mean, people.
Good.
I'll just bite my tongue on that. So just to clarify though, what the difference is between the 100-foot separation and the 50-foot is what we're saying the top of. I guess I'm just not following exactly what the addition of the red language does to clarify the black language on 0.5 or 5 there, unless the pond
So-
excavation.
The red is specifically the location of the pond, not the excavation, because we've had it where the house has been there, they're going 100 foot from that, but then another house will get built after the excavation of the pond's already been complete. So the red here makes it where that house cannot be within 150 foot from that pond. So the pond is pre-existing to the house will have to be 50 foot from the pond.
Still don't get it, right?
I don't read it that way. I was just trying to figure out like what,
Which one are you reading, Ryan?
the one that's,
Under
3.1
construction requirements.
3.17.45, yeah.
Page 5. Number 5.
See it?
So I guess my question is, what would be the difference in the excavation and the pond? So excavation cannot be nearer than 100 feet, but location of the pond may not be within 50 feet. It's a little confusing to me. So,
Well, I think one's residential and one's commercial. I guess the commercial is the 100 and the residential's 50, because a resident doesn't have 100 feet to give up sometimes.
it's just not real clear to me. But
What would make it clearer?
Excavation should not be nearer than 100.
We're just trying to make it so that way any new house that gets put on the property or any new structure that gets put on the property cannot be within 50 foot of a pre-existing pond. And if the pond is going to be constructed after the home has been put on the property, it's got to be within 100. It can't be within 100 foot. So what?
So I don't think we should call them excavations versus, like, to me, just be, is either a pond or the excavation limits, right? Because you're either saying proposing a pond or proposing a home, right? So you can't build a new pond within 100 feet to the edge of wherever the excavation starts of an existing dwelling, right? There's just no reference to existing or proposed in any of those. They read the exact same with the exception of you're changing the location of the pond versus the excavation.
Okay. So we
So
will
if
add.
excavation was changed to ponds, ponds shall not be nearer than 100 feet to any school, church, dwelling, highway, or right-of-way, then I don't really understand what the location of the pond may not be within 50 feet of any school, church, dwelling, or highway right-of-way.
That's a contradiction.
Is the excavation one is supposed to be referring to the existing, and then the pond is supposed to be to the proposed.
Okay, so then maybe it should be
not reading
excavation for construction of a new pond shall not be closer than 100 feet to any existing school, church, dwelling, highway, or I'd just say right of way, because it's not just highways, I'm assuming we're setting back from. And then the location of any proposed school, church, dwelling, or highway shall not be closer than 50 feet to any existing pond.
Okay.
Right, to me, if that was what
That
the
would make
intent
a lot
was.
more sense to me.
That way we're clarifying what's being proposed.
Yes.
We can add that.
Yeah, and I guess it would be nice just to clarify, or making sure it's on the record that this is just for the ponds themselves and not ponds related to development. Because I definitely think there's a lot of opportunities that they will want to be
Yep.
within 50
We're trying to
feet
clear
of.
things up, not make it more confusing, right? Yeah.
Well, should we call it retention ponds?
Well, no, that's specifically not what this is, right? This is
Right.
mining ponds and, mining ponds and fields of land, yeah. Yeah, I don't know how this relates to other sections of the code related to like site development, but. Usually what we see is you got a slope to the pond, you got some sort of maintenance easement, whatever the county requires for maintenance, and then nothing, no other restrictions beyond that, right? From a standpoint of setbacks to the pond. There are some other places that might have a bigger setback, but I would hate to eat up more room than we already are for things that take up space and push the need for development elsewhere.
Can you discuss number 6, especially number 6A?
That's where I was fixing to go as well.
So that's what's already in the ordinance. So maybe Jonathan can answer that part a little bit more. But that is currently what is in the ordinance and how that terminology is.
That's not much of a pond.
Well, pond depths of 10 inches or less, that really wouldn't qualify as a pond to
That's a
me.
kiddie pool.
That ain't even a kiddie pool. That won't even hold water.
I know.
Yeah, I would prefer to have at least 5 feet of permanent pool in a pond, personally, for mosquito, bacteria, algae, all that kind of stuff. once you get to that depth, it kind of is able to self-regulate.
I mean, I felt like they were trying to get somewhere with the access easement and
easement,
utility
yeah.
easements, and basically talking about any kind of excavation or digging near those things. It's almost like they were trying to get a setback, but I don't,
But if I can get the power easement provider that I gave an easement to, or is this, if I can get them to agree to allow me to dig part of my pond, they're not likely
Yeah.
to, right? But
yeah,
what is that,
why do we care?
right?
I agree.
I mean, to me, you've covered like the setbacks that are really important with 5, right? If we clarify that, like it doesn't, if we're cleaning it up and that was a confusing section to everybody, is any of it needed?
I personally don't think so.
No, I think I can get rid of 6.
Be a hard one to get out there and measure.
So get rid of 6 altogether.
Yeah, I don't see anything in there that's able to be practically enforced.
I'm talking about splitting hairs.
So what's the consensus? Delete item 6?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would think so.
Unless you think otherwise.
No,
The,
seems petty.
we used to require over an acre to be state mining permit. Is that still the case?
Yes.
Yes.
So over
Yeah,
an
that's
acre,
actually state law.
that's state law. Are we, but we're no longer requiring that to be rezoned to I-1.
Right, correct. It depends on, so none of the ponds actually go I-1. If they are 1 to 9 acres, then it's a conditional use within the AR1 district. And then if it is, right now, if it's 10 acres or more, then it's a PD specifically for mining reclamation.
All right, what we have further on pond.
I guess the only other thing I see on the construction, it just says the pond side shall be sloped at a 3-to-1 run to rise ratio. Seems like maybe that would be a maximum. I don't see why there would be any issue with somebody going less, but right now it's so specific, it almost reads as that shall be it, and that's the only option there is.
Yeah, I'm okay with modifying that to allow a, less steep slope.
Right, I mean,
4 to 1,
4-to-1
5 to
is
1. Yeah,
much,
that'd be fine.
especially from a safety standpoint.
Yep.
So you add in or less? Or how do you word it?
Yeah, maximum or less, or however we want to word
I
it.
do
like,
maximum.
Maximum.
Shall be no steeper than 3-to-1.
3 to 1.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that way
that's
it's
the-
very clear
that's
that
the
you
very
can't
clear-
go.
That's
Mhm.
right. No steeper than 3 to 1.
Yeah, we know what a 3-to-1 looks like.
Yeah.
So what about the no digging and hauling activities shall take place except between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday?
Out of a pond?
Out of a pond.
Well, we're assuming a pond is not a commercial operation, right?
Well, I think we have that on dirt pits, period, unless y'all have
I
changed it.
think we do too, yeah.
And so,
I think the commissioners changed it.
okay, well, I didn't know that, but if the commissioners has changed it, that's fine, but I don't think you can expect the dirt guy to be able to abide by those hours, and then when he's had a week of rain and he has to work on Saturday to meet a deadline or a commitment, I mean, we don't stop other industries from working on after 5 o'clock and after Saturday or Sunday. And it
Yeah.
just seems to me like,
In the past, we ended up with a lot of these 1 acres in backyards and, not necessarily neighborhoods, but, close proximity to homes, and I think that's why the hours were put on it originally.
well, I'm okay with saying a 1 acre or less pond.
Okay?
Yeah, that's
I'm
what
not,
it,
I'm not okay with just
No, 100%.
ponds
Random
in
lot.
general.
Yeah,
No, put 1 acre or less.
that was the intention.
Zone
That's what it was
residential.
for.
You could do zone residential as well if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cause that's where the complaints come from.
That's right.
Good point,
Yeah.
Alan.
All right, what else?
I mean, just looking through, you have 3.17.4 construction requirements. And then, is that jumping to a different section of code where it's 3.17A ponds construction? Seems like we're saying the same thing two times in a
Right.
Mm.
row right there, like.
Well, it has that 3-to-1 slope in there that we need to say,
Right, but I just noticed that's,
Minimum.
that's captured in 3.17.42.
Yeah.
So would you like to convince 3.17A and 3.17.4?
Yeah, I just don't think we need to repeat, like, if we say it once
Yeah.
in whatever
consolidate.
section, it just
So
needs
you-
to be in there once.
Yeah, you could either add the verbiage to 4 and do away with the other one, or do away with 4. Is that, I mean, to me,
I'd rather do away with A and
A,
consolidate it up.
and then make 4 read like A.
Yeah.
Just make sure they're both.
A's
covered.
easier to codify taken out than it is the whole.
It's pretty simple though. It's pretty basic, and it pretty much sums it up for.
But that could be what 4 says.
Mhm.
That verbiage could be what
It-
4 is.
It is what 4 says, but you have to really do
What-
some reading and.
Where you gotta take the
Reading
hours and
comprehension.
the Monday through Friday and all that
Yeah,
stuff out of
Yeah.
it.
A's pretty direct.
Yeah, it's almost like it was added because it wasn't covered somewhere, and then the other ordinance got, the other section got amended, but ordinance, it was like 05 was the first amendment, and then 17A came in 07. But I just, however, just as long as it's not duplicative, it doesn't seem like there's any reason to be so.
Well, it could say no digging or hauling activities in R zoning shall take place on 1 acre or less pond except between the hours of 8 and 5. I'd be good with that.
Okay.
And do away with A.
What else? Is this a discussion or is this for a motion?
It'll be later on the agenda at the other meeting,
Okay.
but that was a good discussion.
so we're getting rid of 3.17A, and we're changing, okay, the slope to be maximum
Yes, sir.
3-to-1.
Can we also add a minimum depth requirement for permanent pool for 5 feet?
If it's a
It's a pond,
pool pond,
right?
it's not a dry pond, I mean,
Not a dry
we
pond.
won't exclude the ability to, well, I guess with this kind of pond, you probably would never do a dry pond, but,
Yes, this
yeah.
is specifically for wet ponds, not dry ponds.
yeah.
Measured from,
Normal water
Um,
elevation would have a, right, at the normal water elevation of the pond, a minimum of 5
A 5
foot of
depth.
elevation,
That's right.
or depth, excuse me.
I just think you need to put that in there.
Yeah, it'd be from the bottom of bank.
Okay.
So 5 feet from the bottom of the bank for, minimum depth requirement. And that helps with, mosquitoes, bacteria, anything growing in the pond. You get shallower than that, it encourages mosquito larvae to grow and becomes an issue.
Weed.
What else?
ask, so this is something up for, it's on the agenda for tonight for us to
Make a motion.
make
Vote on it,
a
yes.
motion or vote on. When there's that many changes that we talked about, just so it's, I don't want it to look like I'm negative against an ordinance, but if we were to vote on something with that many comments without seeing what the new version is, I wouldn't vote for it. Right, because I feel like there's too many comments to, don't know what it's gonna look like going forward, so that's,
So you want to see the revised ordinance?
yeah, I just feel like there was a lot that we just gave some, not that anything of huge substance is gonna change it, but there was enough there that I think it would be good to see it again.
That's understandable.
Yes, agreed. All right, item 2. Ordinance revision, discussion of an amendment to the Code of Ordinances, Part 2, Official Code, Appendix C, Article 3, Section 3.41, swimming pools, private community, or club. Ms. Samantha.
Yes, sir. So once again, we're just trying to do some clarification and making some changes based off of the International Swimming Pool Code. One of the things is we are now clarifying that we are measuring from water's edge. Pools cannot be in the front yard. We're requiring a fence around all of the swimming pools, except the above ground that you'll see on, and this is on the piece of paper, printed ordinance, because we've made some changes today. So reference the printed one for any questions for this one. We also did some specifications for the fence needing a self-latching gate with the door opening away from the pool and a lockable device on it. And if a private swimming pool is used for swimming lessons, that they will have to adhere to the community or club swimming pools part of the ordinance. And something that was mentioned after we printed this, the ordinance does not specifically require a permit, so that is something that will be added as well, that our permit is required. Just to clarify that it is.
Question.
Yes, sir.
On the item description, official code 3.141, swimming pools, private, community, or club, should that be private, comma, community, or is that private community? So if it's private community, it won't apply to household pools, privately owned household pools? Just private community pools?
Where'd you say at?
It's under the
Oh,
item description.
yes, sir. That is supposed to be a comma in there.
So if someone's got a pool in their backyard, this doesn't apply.
It does. Yes, sir.
Then it should be private, comma, community, comma, or club.
Yes, sir. So that, I don't know if the title just got changed whenever I moved it over, if that's how it is, but
Okay.
we will get that adjusted to make sure that has that comma in there.
So the health department's the one issuing the pool permit, correct?
No, sir, we do. Where do you see the health department? Where do you see that about the health department?
But that's who regulates pools.
They do. Yeah, they issue a permit 'cause they gotta make sure that it's not too close to septic tanks and all that kinda.
And all the other kind of life safety things.
Right.
That's where I was going, like, I almost think we should just reference to other codes as opposed to even calling out like the 4-foot fence, right? Like, because that's regulated in the International Pool and Spa Code. What if they change that to 4.5 feet, right? So like, again, just to not be duplicative on something that's covered somewhere. If there's things that we need to cover, like setbacks, or not in the front yard of residential structure, residential, all for having a code that covers that from like a zoning standpoint. But really, I think the only thing I saw was that 4-foot. But there's a lot of other requirements inside those codes that this doesn't even come close to covering. So I would hate for somebody to look at this and think that's my checkbox of what I've got to do for the pool.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ashley Kessler, building official.
Chief.
Chief building official. No, there are a lot of other codes or whatever that we enforce, it's all covered in the IRC. I think this was just specifying certain parts. Yeah, the setbacks, we look at that, the fences, we look at that, grounding, bonding, all that stuff.
Yeah, like I said, I don't disagree with having a need to control. If there's something in the codes that already exist elsewhere that need to be controlled, but it just seems like that, I mean, I guess should ask, like, what ordinance is this in? Is this in the
Zoning ordinance.
zoning ordinance? So yeah,
Yes,
so
sir.
it's related to the setbacks and where the use can go. Yeah,
Yeah, everything else is still enforced,
yeah,
just by the inspectors, not by the zoning before it gets to them.
right.
What is the standardized height of these fences? Is it 4 foot or is it 5 foot?
4.
4 foot? I mean, that's easy for a
4
teenager to
48
hop
inches.
over. When I was a juvenile delinquent in New York, we would have pool parties by hopping over people's fences and going in the
Yes.
pool.
Yeah, I mean,
That was
Yeah,
the good old days, weren't they?
I mean, it's a minimum. I mean, it's just,
it is, yeah. But I mean, there's also like a whole, like you can't have a foothold on the outside of the fence that's within a few feet of it to give you a foot up over 4 feet high. So 4 feet high might not comply. That's why I was saying I hate to give like if somebody could just, if it's covered elsewhere, it seems like the zoning doesn't have to cover it. Like if that fence is covered, unless y'all are looking for it from a zoning standpoint to see that there's a line on the drawing that shows a 4 foot high fence. Just follow where I'm going. Like if there's another code that y'all are reviewing it for and against, like, let's leave the setbacks and all the stuff that needs to be covered in there, but I guess what I would say on this is, for fencing, could we not just say, refer to the code that's gonna cover all
it does,
those
and the
issues?
code refers you to the International
Right,
Spa and Pool Code, which spells out the 48-inch minimum. So that's basically where that came from.
yeah.
So you're saying just reference that code?
And it's gonna take you back and forth to both anyway, so.
Yeah, I fought a sword for it. I was just saying, if there's,
No, I get
if
it.
it's already covered somewhere and we're referencing it, maybe we don't have to cover that, but whatever, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so you wanna take out the fence part then?
That was just, my recommendation. I don't, it's up to the rest of the board, obviously. I just, on that, it seems like if it's covered in another code that we're enforcing elsewhere, we could just reference that those codes apply related to fencing and any other access controls.
Are you familiar with that code?
Yeah. Been
mean-
burned on it recently.
Huh?
Been burned on it recently.
Really?
Well, just from the standpoint, there's a lot more to the International Pool and Spa Code than it used to. It's a fairly new code, right? So what used to check a checkbox of a 4 foot high fence doesn't always now meet that. That's why I just would hate for it just to be somebody would look at that, and I know y'all wouldn't. Y'all would look deeper, but just if somebody went to this section and said, that's all I've got to worry about is the 4 foot high fence, right? So.
So does Chatham County issue permits on, inflatable pools or temporary pools, or is it all in-ground?
Oh gosh, I don't want to speak for Chatham County, but what I've been involved with, it was in-ground,
All in-ground?
yeah.
Okay.
But from a planning and zoning or site plan review, it was looking at setback. Do you meet the location the pool can be? Otherwise, they defer all of that to the health department or the other departments to review from a standpoint of the requirements of the pool. Of course, granted, I'm sure most of what y'all are hitting is private pools and people's yards that, right? And I'm not dealing with those. We're dealing with more of a, like, to the point, it was more of a community-based pool, like a much bigger pool.
I mean, our debate was, do we want to permit above-ground pools, whatever above-ground means? We'd have to come up with a definition for it. And we want to make sure the code didn't address above-ground pools and us not. So what we really came up with was, you know, if there's a 4-foot fence around it for all the Higgins grandchildren, then that would help, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the locking and all that was specifically out of the spa ordinance, then we felt like that was enough to get us by with above-ground pools.
Okay, so the point was then the stuff you're not able to regulate, like
Yeah,
above ground pools, you're expecting, so you could, if it popped up,
yep.
okay, well then never mind.
Yep,
That's right what I said.
That's the
Yep.
thing.
So that would be
Okay.
either or, above ground or in ground.
Right, exactly. yes.
4-foot fence,
But
minimum.
that's a minimum,
minimum,
yeah.
But technically, if I go buy one of the blow up ones from a big box store and put it in my
If
yard, and my
it's
neighbor
under
wants to complain,
48
it's supposed to have a
inches, Yeah,
48-inch high fence around it.
yeah.
Okay. Then, yeah, never mind. Sorry, I just
It's
wasted
okay.
everybody's time.
We just,
What else?
I got a question. I thought it was always against the ordinance to put one in the front yard, a pool. That
so,
a change, actually a change?
no, so, the Open Gov system allows people to submit their drawings, okay? And those drawings don't always have orientation on them of where north, south, east, or west is. So if you got a house and it looks like a side yard until you physically go out there and then you find out it's a front yard, then there's some misunderstanding of how they drew the picture.
Kinda like the one we're gonna hear tonight.
Kind of like the one we're gonna see tonight. So we just wanna make sure that when somebody reads that ahead of time, there's a clear understanding that front is front and it can't be above even, so if your house sits here, while that may still be a side yard, you still can't be in front of the house.
Right.
And so in front of the house doesn't necessarily mean in front of the house.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying
It's
to.
But I think it
orientation-
needs to be
its
some
orientation can't
clarification, or
be-
we might have more of these issues like
Yeah.
we're gonna look at in a little while.
Thanks,
So even if
Samantha.
it's in a side yard, the orientation of that pool can't be in front of the house.
Exactly right. That's right. Because now you're defeating the whole purpose of having the setback in the front. Correct.
Makes sense.
Yeah, see? So you could have a side yard that extends, you know, 30, which this one does, about, what, 60, probably even 70 feet from the front of the house, and the side yard extends all the way out to the road. Well, they consider it a side yard, and I get that. But it is in front of the front of the house.
There's a new pool on Little McCall Road, from McCall over to Courthouse. There's a guy that's got a side yard pool in the ground.
Oh,
It's just new.
thank you.
I don't think it's in front of the front
But it's new.
trajectory of the house.
It's not forward of the front yard set, and that's what we're saying, right? So if you've got a right of way of the road or whatever, we're set back from whatever the setback is. In no instance could the pool be forward to that line.
Correct.
But if it's back to that line, it can be in the side yard
It can.
of.
That's correct, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So a side yard could end pretty quickly at the front of the house, but it could go, 40 feet the other way.
What if the setback is 25 feet and they built their house 50 feet back?
That's why we change yards, to be able to accommodate that change in the setback. Right now, you can't build anything in the setback.
No, I'm saying, what if you built your house well set back from the front setback,
Right. Oh, okay.
right? So in other words, your house is back here at 100 feet, the front setback's 50 feet. Does the language say they have to be behind the front setback or behind the front of the house?
Front of the house.
Okay.
Yeah, not setback line. They need to plan ahead.
Or front yard
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
residential zoning district.
One you're gonna see tonight is literally
In the
in the intersection of the road. It ain't, it's way as far in the front yard as you can get.
Where is it located?
It's over there off of Hodgeville Road. I don't remember the name of the little road in the subdivision.
I don't know what the name of it
It's
is.
Lakeview. Lakeview.
Lakeview,
Lakeview.
yeah.
All right.
But
But-
also, I think, as you'll see tonight, that lot specifically does have the need for a variance other than what staff making a wrong judgment call, so.
I'm gonna tell you something, sidebar, probably not the right time.
Go ahead.
There's quite a few residents over there that's not happy, but they probably not gonna come because the guy's a lawyer and they scared to come. That he might find a way to do something against them later.
Okay, that's good to know.
That's in my district, so
Oh, is it? Okay.
I've been burned up. So there's 5 or 6 of them that surround it that,
Is the pool built?
oh yeah, it's built. Pretty much built. And the fences, most of the fences up.
8 foot. Is it done? Did y'all CO it?
How weird is that?
Okay. It's not been CO'd yet, so.
But that probably won't make a lot of difference to that guy, cause he's been steady building. Even though I think he was supposed to stop, wasn't he?
He stopped temporarily until he got a hold of us, yeah.
What else on this one?
Samantha?
I think that's it. And like I said previously, there will be a line added that pools do require a permit, just for clarification purposes.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is just make sure that front yard of a residential zoning district, like, is very clear that it's forward of the building, right? Like again, because the front yard setback is often used as the term front yard, right? So just make sure that it's very clear that it can't be forward of the building, no matter where the building's placed on the site.
Try another one. Item 3, discussion of amendment to the Code of Ordinances, Part 2, Official Code, Appendix C, Article 4, Section 4.1, Zoning of Districts. Mr. Steve.
Thank you. So stay with me on this one, okay?
Oh, Lord.
So there's a couple things we got to do. One is in the first part of Article 4 is going to be the elimination of the description for each zoning district. It's going to be very minimal. And we're just going to refer to the table of permitted uses. That makes sense?
No.
So if you're in B3, you can go see the table of permitted uses, right? There'll be a small description of characters. If it has something like, so like an AR1, you got to have X number of road frontage or so. That's going to be in there, but everything else is just going to refer to the table of permitted uses. Simplifies the process immensely compared to what it says now. You know, some of these things have conditional uses listed, all that kind of, we want to get away from that. That way, if we change the table of permitted uses, then it changes into the zoning district. That makes sense? Okay. We're also going to move the zoning districts, like I said, they're going to be moved to Article 4 and instead of Article 5, and then Article 4 or 5 is going to be just the table of permitted uses. So we're kind of doing a little switch, but that 5 is going to be just the table. Remember that big chart we had and all the pretty colors and all, that's what that's going to be. District 4 is going to be the descriptions that refers to the chart. Also in Article 4, the county attorney is busy, he's created an ordinance that talks about the official zoning map. This would be 4.2 of Article 4. And our zoning map is going to be updated, which has not been done since 2012. So we need to update that as well. So that is gonna be in Article 4 after the description of the districts. So this Article 5/use permitted is Article 4 now. You can just see what that is. And that's the description of everything there. It says 5, but it's gonna say 4. Did it say 4? Yeah, right? Now, Mr. Allen, if you wanna talk about PD districts, now is the time to have that discussion. So PD districts start where is it 5 point, hold on a second. They start at, it's what we call mixed-use districts on the table of permitted uses, but it starts at 5.15 and it says plan unit developments. They're now gonna be called mixed-use districts, because that's really what they are, right? But any changes that you would like to make as a group to, the plan development, which is now known as mixed use, that is the time to do it is right now. So I would read that 5.15, what time is it?
What page is he on?
You got, yeah, just read that a little while and take a look at that. So, like Mr. Allen said that he wanted to talk about density in a mixed-use district. Now's the time to put that in there if you want to do it.
What page is that on?
I don't have no page.
59, I think,
What
on
page
our
is it on?
PD, or our
54?
59 of 81 is where it starts.
Thank
That's
you.
right.
Okay.
Well, part of my thought is I'm having a hard time getting on board with how you calculate the density.
Right,
Because you calculate it based on the total amount of acres. But you can't build on a retention pond, you can't build in a road, and you can't build in green space.
can't build in a wetland.
Can't build in a wetland, so therefore, the density ought to be on the
Upland.
usable, buildable land,
Correct.
not how it's calculated now, to me.
Okay,
Because if you look at it one way, that last month it was almost 4 per acre, but if you look at the number of acres, it was over 10 per acre of the actual usable acres.
if that's what you want to do, that's what we need to do.
Well, I mean, I'm just one person.
I know,
but
that's what I mean, yeah.
how I feel. I also feel that PD developments ought not be out in the middle of the woods in the middle of nowhere. They ought to be on I'm not gonna say necessarily state road, but a major road. And they ought to be in somewhere close proximity to a town, not 20 miles away from the nearest convenience store or anything. Because I thought planned development, in my mind, is a community that has shopping and housing and all that stuff in it.
And
To me, and maybe I'm wrong, but that's just how I think.
And it has the infrastructure of roads to support it.
Right.
So if you're gonna do a true mixed-use development that has commercial, residential, multifamily or something, and you wanna take that, let's call it 200 acres, and just set it down somewhere, and now you have an instant node or something like that, there needs to be infrastructure in place.
Well, also, if you're gonna do a true mixed use, and you're gonna put it in, 20 miles from
Clio.
Dave's family farm,
Okay.
okay? And it has grocery stores, it has everything that those people need to live, that's one thing. But what I'm seeing, sitting on this board, is they're using PD to densely develop a residential community that has none of the other things involved in it. It's nothing but lots of small houses in a tightly confined space. That's what PD means when you come to Effingham County. And now that we got PD, we will never see another development other than PD. I done sit on this board too long. When we went to R6, all the other residential was gone. We never seen another one. It's all R6. And then we went from that to PD, and now all we're gonna see is PD. And Ashley will have to work day and night because there'll be 10 houses on every acre, and he ain't got enough man to watch them be built.
Yeah,
I don't think.
The developer's looking for swinging doors where he can build a house.
And it's all about what kind of development do we want? What do we want Effingham County to look like 10, 15, 20 years from now?
You need to decide.
Well, I know how I want it to look, but I'm old and backwards.
Can we get a recording of that one?
Right. Well, it's just true. I mean, that's just true.
So you don't want to see anything above a third an acre. I think that's what you talked about. Right?
That's what I'd love to see. That's how I'd like to see the county look, but I don't think we're gonna have the kind of development that developers want like that. They're gonna want the more dense as we'll allow. And we got to decide what that is.
So I agree with exactly what you're saying. I mean, personally, I don't think we should be allowing the PD to be used to basically a variance on the density. Like if they're gonna do PD, I think the density should be based on what R5 is currently.
Max.
But we're seeing PD be used to alter the density. I think PD, I agree with Alan. I think I think it should be a planned development. But if we're not gonna require that, and we're gonna allow PD to be used, I think it should be used in a way that you get a Ryan Thompson to come in and draw you a very nice development that changes some lot sizes and changes and shifts some green space and makes a different type of development, but it doesn't change the overall density more than R5. Like you get to play with your lot sizes in areas, but if you stacked them side by side, it still wouldn't be any different than if it was rezoned R5.
But also a planned development ought not be all houses. If there's nothing else in it but houses, it's a residential community,
That's correct.
not a planned development.
So I don't agree with that, in my opinion. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily have commercial in it, right? Because commercial is, now maybe some other use, but that use might be a park space or something. But I mean, to me, planned development is a planned development. They're submitting a plan showing you very, very close to what they're proposing to build, right? And that's what we do require, right? I mean,
But this is a mixed use.
What we're proposing is mixed use. Our current code is PDs with certain uses
But mixed
specifically.
use
Your table
means-
of permitted uses says mixed use on it now.
What about the
Right, but our
Exley
code
tract?
that
I'm
we
sorry.
have right
That's
now
why we're
says
trying to
PD.
Sorry, go ahead,
right?
Ryan. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So, I agree with using a PD to go around other established minimum standards is not the best approach for it. When I think PD, right, if we've got and maybe the new table of uses, the fact that it allows more housing types underneath an R5 than originally R5 was single family detached and only single family detached. If now, I believe it does, it allows for townhomes, duplexes, that kind of thing, because that is one of the reasons PDs have happened, right, is because you do want to mix and you don't want to be held to just one type. Now, granted, whether or not we want to allow that other type is up to discussion.
But the market is also dictating what it is they're coming before you. Not to interrupt you, but so you got to remember that not everybody wants, the half-acre lot, single family with the picket fence.
I agree with that, and I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But what I've seen sitting on this board, a PD means real tight lots. I mean, it might be a great use of the land,
Yeah.
but it's just a residential development. It's not, it's nothing else, what we seeing.
Yeah, I mean, because with the current code, PDR is a residential PD.
Yep, there's no
Right.
golf course in there, there's no nothing.
Well, what did Murray Marshall do years ago on the Exley track? He made it PD, and then he came and held that over our heads and said, well, I'll just put, Section 8 housing in there if you don't let me build this industrial. So what do? We give him a variance so he can make that
No,
PD
he
into a...
rezoned the whole property to I-1 and not,
Did it go I-1?
yeah, when
That was originally done as a planned development to get, because you had two uses. The concern was the warehousing was gonna be such a detriment to Goshen Hills that the county encouraged him to put some residential, some townhomes to basically break it up, to
Right,
transition it.
Right.
And now, as we've learned, the warehouses they don't affect the residential areas, so it was kind of so then he had what, 1,300 units or something? 1,500
Yeah.
doors that he could have done there, so, yeah, I mean,
At
it was
what,
a mistake on the
8.76
county's part,
trips a day or
Yeah.
something.
so,
Let's do it.
I mean,
But it did go industrial, light industrial?
yeah. So yes, that was why it was a mixed-use PD,
But it
So-
originally started as a residential PD,
It did,
and
yeah.
it converted
Yeah,
into
that's
industrial.
true, that's true,
And then
yeah.
So,
stayed
Alan, so-
multifamily, so.
What would happen if somebody came to us and, so let's take Midland Road, there's some utilities available down on the 30 side, and they said that, hey, I know you want mixed use, you want commercial and all that, but I tell you what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give you, out of the 200 acres I have, 100 of it, I'm not even gonna touch. I'm just gonna leave it like it is, I'm not gonna, mow it, timber it, anything. And then part of that will be recreational area for anybody, there could be a park, something like that. And then in lieu of that, I'm going to put all of my houses in one little spot, where I cluster them together so it doesn't cost me as much to run utilities like it would all over that 200 acres. But I'm gonna cluster them all in that 25, 30 acres, and then I'm gonna give you everything else. Would you do something like that?
And it's never gonna be,
Never gonna be developed.
yeah, I'd do
Okay.
something like
All
that.
right. So clustering. is
I
what
do,
you're saying.
I would do something on a planned development where it had, houses, or maybe with a mix of some townhouses or some multi-family houses or something, but if it's just 36-foot lots with 21-foot houses, the whole thing, that's just a residential development. It's not
Subdivision,
a
right.
planned development, in my mind.
Right.
I know you probably don't agree with that, but it's just, it ought to be a R something, not a PD, not to me.
I agree with that, 100%.
We've had some internal conversations on that too. Yeah, but so planned development, so let's take New Haven as an example, where they have a phase 1 that was single family. They got phase 2, which is,
They
townhome.
got townhome.
And then going back to phase 3, which is gonna be single family again. So it's getting there, but that's not quite where you're at yet.
Well, that's much better than some of the others
Right.
that's just small
Lots.
36-foot lots with a 21-foot house on it. The whole community, that's the whole thing is, there's no townhomes, there's no,
Yeah, I don't disagree at all with that aspect. There's a route that's going around to solve a different, and if it's just solving one piece of it, unless there's some big, huge additional give, right, that it's a massive open space preservation. I agree with your point too about the wetlands. I mean, if 50% of the site is wetlands and they're giving you that, then maybe that still is not a justification for the plan is what it is. But, yeah, I don't know how to address that specifically, because I hate to get rid of this. I know of some places that say thou shalt put commercial in any planned unit development that you do, no matter where it is.
There are places.
And that's,
I'm not
and that's 5 acres that will sit there forever.
Yep.
Because there's no viability to do but in order to get it approved, you've got to do that. That could be the standard. It's just, I feel like maybe there's another solution in there that prevents what you're talking about without having some, we gotta create a space to check that checkbox that then still allows them to do a PD or a mixed-use development.
Well, we've seen two recently, right? One was behind Grace Church.
Yes.
The other,
One's right across the railroad track from Grace Church, one right there, same thing.
but then yeah, and I understand why we asked them to do that, but the piece on Tommy Strickland's, Wade McDonald's on Midland came back as a PD, and it was no different than before, other than it was stacked full of lots. I mean, there was nothing planned development about it. I mean, it was.
So I think they did make this one approved. It wasn't to the point where, to me, it was ready to be approved, but I was more comfortable a PD approach on that one than a straight R5, R3. Because to me, that was, then once all the controls you've got were just, now it's just R5 or R3 in there. I don't know, that to me was a scale of a project where that did kind of make sense. We have some additional, we have the ability to ask for, maybe we didn't ask for it yet, but we could ask for more buffers because they're asking for that. We could ask to add more things into it, so.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that as a group, we have a tendency to forget when it gets all, talky in here, is it's a negotiation at that point in time.
The plan development is a
Yeah.
tough, busy rezoning.
Yep.
It's hard to get through. And it's much bigger than just one simple little meeting. The ones we've had in the past, I mean, they bring in slides and they bring in boards and they show you and you talk, but to Alan, I mean, I'm with Alan. I mean, we don't get much. The developer brings his stuff and says what he wants to do, and that's usually what it is.
Yep, a text and a picture. And the picture doesn't always usually end up what it is.
So
Look, I'm okay with what Ryan said, that, I mean, if commercial is not gonna fit in it, is not gonna sell, I'm okay with saying that planned development has got to be a mix of different type housings. Okay, if we're gonna say it's residential, I'm okay with putting some multifamily or some townhome type things in that environment. But if you don't do something like that, and it's all 36-foot lots, the whole community, then it's just a R something in my book. It's not planned development, to me.
The problem is we deny it, and then it goes to the commissioners and they approve it.
Well, we won't have any control over that.
But what are their feelings about that? Have you ever spoken to them about this? Did they have any repulsion to the PD abuse that's going on?
So, part of, my existence is to rewrite, the entire zoning ordinance. We're almost there. We got 4 and 5 to get done here. You guys got the R5 when you were there. You got rid of the R6, so you're on the right way. There's PDR, and there's all the list of stuff that is actually under plan development. So you got so PD manufacturing is a pit, right? Isn't that what that is? PDMR is a pit, so that's a PD as well. So that's why I said that. Do we want to put residential in with a mining pit? So we've got different types of PDs or different types of mixed uses.
Well,
to me, they're two different
residential
things.
fits pretty
Yeah.
good
You got a
around
mixed-use district
completed mining pit.
Yeah.
that might allow for, without having to have a plan, you just got the rights to these mixed uses. If
That's right.
it's adjacent to a corridor like 21, where we'd love for somebody to come in and build a mixed-use district, they shouldn't have to write a PD. We should allow for a mixed-use district that allows all these
That's
things
right.
to happen at one time. It's
Yeah.
enough growth that let the developer define, literally, like we put some parameters around it, but it's its own by right zoning district, just like residential is, and it's
Yep.
got its own defined uses.
Yeah.
To me, if there's all this stuff we've still been discussing about ways to mix uses residentially, then that would still be a PD. But if we've now got this table of uses, and I think it'd be helpful for us to see the table of uses that is now, if all that mixture of housing types can happen inside of an R5 now, which they can, right? If I remember right, like
Somebody will bring it up here in a minute.
we
yeah.
discussed, and
Yeah.
that was, like, I think we all got a little concerned with were we allowing different
that's
types
true,
of
yeah.
residential in too many different districts. I mean, that may have solved this issue, because now they've got the right to mixing uses inside R5. It's just, they still might ask for variances to lot widths and stuff, subject to that, and then, maybe that is the solution to it. That you've already got it kind of addressed, the fact that the table of uses was allowing a bigger mixture of
A
uses.
bigger mixture than just R3.
But we need to be prepared that everybody that comes through is gonna ask for a variance to the lot width, because that's where they're,
Yeah.
to me, it'd be better for us to all, as a community, decide what do we want it to be, and then that's the standard that it is.
Yeah.
Agree with that.
I mean, do you want to, so this goes back to, I mean, you can be as specific as I want 60%, single family, I want 20% multifamily, and I want 20% residential, or commercial. I mean, you can be that specific, or you can be that broad. You could say, I want 60% single family, and half of it can be single family lots, and half of it can be townhomes. You could do something like that. You can say, so that's what I'm saying. You get the creative juices flowing if you want to, change that PD, and what you're getting now is you're saying you're not satisfied with the narrative. Well, you can change that narrative, by putting in something else.
Well, I think we gotta give it some thought. I do.
I know,
would
that's
have
what I'm
to give
saying,
it some
yeah.
thought,
Absolutely.
Because, what I was against was what we're using PD for now is just dense development of single-family homes. That's all it is.
Yes.
It's just we done away with R6, and we come up with PD because we didn't like R6.
Well, you came up with R5 because you didn't like R6.
R5.
Yeah.
So,
But it probably didn't go far enough for some.
yeah.
I mean, you've got some architectural standards in there. You've got some other things. So just know that density is a baseline for anybody that's coming in that door. That is going to be the baseline.
Yeah.
Your response to that be, I want trees.
Yeah.
I want shingles that look green. I don't know, I'm making it up. I want, community pools. I want stuff like that. So they're going to come in, they want density, and what do you want I want open space, I want drainage, so that's how when you think about this, I just want you to think like that. Heritage trees. I don't care if they're in the middle of where you're going to put 40 houses, those 3 trees need to save. Good example, Goshen Church, they moved everything back from those trees and from the road. So that was, one of the things that you guys had sought. And we are ready next door if you want to go.
Okay. The only true one I can ever remember being was the research track. What is it now? The Omnitrax. I mean, once upon
And
a
they're not
time-
done yet.
Once upon a time, it was a mixed-use PD planned whatever
It's just like God.
PUD, and it was awesome.
It was gonna have residential,
It was
commercial.
gonna have everything.
It was gonna have doctor's offices, it was
Yep.
shopping, schools,
Yeah.
Everything.
And then the
That's a true
developers
PD.
it was awesome. And then the developers figured it out, and God bless his soul. I mean, Mr. Phillips showed up with the Winfield, and you got small lots and it's changed for extra green space, and the green space was under the power line. you know, and it kind of was like, you know, well, that's not what this is intended for. But that was the trade-off, and so it's always been a push, it's always been a struggle between this group and that group for density and lot sizes.
I mean, could we not come up with something as simple as either well, I guess it's not R6, R5 is your basis of, like, so come up with this example scenario, here's R5, here's how the densities, maybe there is one already.
That's calculated.
Here's how it's calculated. So if you go to the PD route, maximum you're asking for is that without doing X, Y, Z, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's a easier, and we got to define what that X, Y, and Z is, right, as a group, but that it would allow them to know that they can't just say, I'm submitting for a PD and I want to do 1.5 times the density that R5 is and half the size of lots, and just say we're putting a buffer on it, right? Like there's at least there would be some controls to, like, establishing what the minimal expectations are. Does that make sense?
Sure does.
I like the
I mean, I don't know that R5 is the basis to start with, because there's a decent bit of density already defined in R5.
That's 12
why
an
I
acre,
question.
12 an acre, right? R5?
5.
5 an acre?
To the gross acre or to the net, or how, I can't remember how that was defined.
I will look for you.
Yeah, I mean, because 5 to the gross acre is gonna be a lot of density on anything, to the point of like wetlands and,
Yeah.
I mean, you
Absolutely.
can't, even with the width of the lot that is, and once you put roads and ponds and setbacks and stuff in, with a 60-foot wide lot, you're gonna struggle to really get to 3 units to the
3
acre.
units to the acre is the number, when it's good land.
So we just gotta look at, like, make sure if we go that route, like, the examples giving enough controls that it doesn't already work for what they need, and they'll never have to add the other things in, because the example, the density, the way it's calculated, gives way more density than they would likely ever need. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but see, I'm of the other approach. You tell me everything you want, and then I'll make it work around what it is you desire. I'm not worried about the density. If I get what I want, if I want 50% tree coverage, 30% tree coverage, if I want, you know, the customer base for the water and sewer, if I get the roads that I want and how they're designed like I want, if I get the stormwater like I want, you know, whatever it is, or I get that open space and I get parks in every PD that, you know, dedicated to the county or something, I can work with the density. I want to declare what it is that we're interested in, the character that we want for Effingham County. That's more important to me.
Do
than
we have any
density.
baselines? Do we have any documents? Do we have anything to go off to start with?
Like for which, what? Choose.
For what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you want? Yeah, you
We
do.
do.
You got a land use plan.
We got a land use plan.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and you got a future land use map.
So then we need some documents for a starting place, right?
It helps to be in coordination with all those documents, yes.
I like the idea what you talked about before, where in a PD, you have to have a dedicated area of commercial. That would be a grocery store, not a grocery store, a convenience store, and those people wouldn't have to travel so far away into the,
It is
Infrastructure.
typical, but,
Examples out there, there's stuff that won't say.
yeah, but it's typical.
and that might drive
But-
the developer to go to a R5
It,
instead of a PD.
it may. I mean,
I will
so,
say, we could maybe look at Bryan County's new UDO. I mean, that is what they did. Like, they've made a stance that you will not use PUD just to reduce lot sizes, right? It's gotta have some other, I mean, and it's very, very specific, like clearly. Now, I don't think we've really figured out what that means, because, you know, we're dealing with another community. Literally, their requirement is 20% of the gross floor area has to be commercial, which they all recognize as crazy. You know, it's really high, right? So they grant a variance on everyone that comes through. I don't think we want to do that. It is as it should be. PD should be, you know, take a lot of thought. It's not just a by right zoning. It's something that takes thought and need. I just, maybe it's commercial. Maybe it's you have to dedicate a park space, or you have to dedicate a civic space of some sort or something in there, right? That's a community benefit beyond just the residential. I mean, that could be a fair approach to it. Again, if we've already got residential that's
But
mixed and
density,
stuff.
that's the motivating factor.
But
Just
then that
remember
would
that.
drive them to go to R5, and that's maybe the,
And then you have,
Correct.
you know, the cost of everything and whether your folks can stay in Effingham County or whether they're gonna have to live somewhere else in Screven or Bullock and then drive here. Now you've created transportation issues. So density is an issue. I get it. You don't want to see everything that dense. But there's also a cost factor involved in it. And then it just brings in the whole thing of who stays and who goes.
We get to choose that?
You do?
Me and you got some people to go see.
You're gonna need a bus. You won't need that car you driving.
need a 40-foot
R5
container.
is 5 dwelling units per net usable acre. That's
Per
what
net
R5
usable?
is.
Net usable.
Let's wrap it
And
up.
that's defined, net usable as basically gross minus your jurisdictional wetlands.
Right.
Okay, I mean, you can still get a pretty good vent density out of that.
Sure
I would
can.
imagine most of these variances for lot sizes would still fit. Like you could probably vary down to the 40-foot wide lot that they were asking for, and your net density wouldn't be quite defined.
Samantha, what's the narrowest lot you've approved so far for a site plan?
36 feet.
30.
That's what is on,
That behind the church.
the Goshen.
Yeah,
Like 36 by 90 or 32 by 90 or something.
yeah.
But I think we did a
That's
variance
36.
on some right there by Bible Church that's less than that.
Really?
I think so.
Not where?
Right on Blue Jay Road before you get to Bible Church, that development that we issued the variance on, wasn't they a little bit smaller than?
Was it just the ones up by the road?
Talking about Pine Brook?
Mhm.
There were
Think-
4 of them.
There was
How
4
wide are
lots that were
Those
smaller.
were for it was mostly cul-de-sac lots
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
were.
cul-de-sac.
Oh, yeah, but on a pie shape, I mean, that's a big difference, right?
It's a huge difference, yeah. Yeah, you're talking.
But a
that,
rectangular typical lot, 36, that PD that we
Yeah.
just approved, or just got approved was the narrowest.
About a 21-foot house.
Mm-hmm.
What they
So
proposed.
I'll say, to me, it's gonna be, that density is important, but getting those that's what they're gonna keep going back to, because their cost is in the road and the infrastructure to
It
build
is.
the house.
I agree.
So if they could build it tightly over here and keep it over here, and the density is still bigger, they're gonna go for that, right? But
So if you cluster, 100 houses somewhere on 100 acres, and you cluster it to where you can't see it from the road, or you can't see it from anywhere else,
Yeah.
that's golden. I mean, that's what
I
you
agree.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether it be a berm out front or something
Yeah.
like that, and the
100%.
infrastructure costs go down dramatically. So, and you still have the customers.
Yeah, but that'll be in the future, but anyway. All right, we're gonna take a break. I'm gonna bless the food. The food's ready. If y'all bow your head, I'll return thanks. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we just praise you for this time. We thank you for this meal, and we just ask you would help it nourish our bodies, us, our servers. Thank you for hands that prepared it and the ones that raised it from the ground. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Adjourned.